from, well, any. What's the meaning of
So, do any of y'all read stuff during the week?
Like what? You want to download it?
Yes.
What do you read during the week related to anything we might talk about here?
Well, you didn't finish the question.
Oh man.
Okay.
Oh, did somebody have a question? Did I cut somebody off? I forget.
No, it was just me making noise.
Welcome to Active
Oh, okay.
Conference. Please enter your conference code now.
We're just trying to deal with the fall weather.
It's not fall
At the
yet.
tone, please speak your full name.
It's not until it's after the 20th, isn't it?
Weather's the weather.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have summer weather in January.
You will now be joining your conference.
Oh, that is a big room.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, we're impressed,
The
Nick.
other room we could read.
Right.
He has to get up now to get books.
And cross some space to
I know.
He got smaller.
So your room looks like it's about 12 by, maybe it's, is your room the size of this room?
No, that room is bigger.
Okay.
Okay.
So the other, I have like bay windows or something.
Shut up.
Oh,
I
go
thought you were in the
ahead.
basement.
I am in a basement.
Oh, but it fronts onto the street or whatever,
Right.
or backs onto the backyard.
That's good, man.
Keep
Oh,
going.
that's
Oh, that's
beautiful.
Or is
nice.
that it?
Oh, we can go around the whole room.
Or is there a part of the room you don't want us to see?
So we're gonna tour Nick's room.
We toured Nick's room.
No, it's the other part of the room where he's got all the girls hidden.
Sheldon, you're next.
They're
So
shuffling
clean up
around
whatever.
Well, he's going slowly.
No, they're like, I've instructed them to stay behind the camera at all times.
And pick up after themselves. Right.
That's wonderful.
All right, Sheldon, let's see your box. You don't care about the ceiling.
The window right there.
Where's the window open to? What do you look out at?
Just Second Street. But the blinds don't work yet, so they're supposed to be replacing them. And then there's a bathroom around the corner. So
Yeah,
that's it.
right. He's got somebody
Oh,
behind
cool.
the blinds.
That looks nice and institutional, but it's
You said it looks nice and what?
institutional.
Oh, I see.
Well, you got a bed, you got a polished floor.
Can we paint?
Can we what?
Paint.
Paint? Nah, I don't think we can paint.
Can you hang things on the wall?
Oh, shoot. That's funny. Good morning.
Okay.
All right. So, if nobody has any questions,
Nobody read anything. So we don't have questions.
we shall begin.
We speak without reading.
See, when Janice gonna get jumped.
I am totally jealous.
See, my sister's gonna get jealous now. See, I catch her later.
Good thing not a room of people in here.
Okay. I wanted to start with something from the Gospel of Thomas, which is my go-to gospel now.
Oh, wow.
But it is verse or saying 86. And that is, Jesus said, "The foxes have their holes, and the birds have their nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." and rest. And then I will tie that into the one that comes before it, verse 85. But I'll go over that. Or actually, I can read verse 85 too. Jesus said, Adam came into being from a great power and a great wealth, but he did not become worthy of you. For had he been worthy, he would not have experienced death. So, saying 86 was the foxes have their holes and the birds have their nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head and rest. So we'll start with that one. So, what is what's can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
I'm getting a little bit of an echo.
Yeah.
Everyone can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, I.
So, when we talk about the Son of Man, what is it that we are actually referring to? So in verse 86, when he says the Son of Man has no place to lay his head, is he referring to only himself, or to what do you think?
Plural.
Who said that?
Miss Barbara. Barbara said that.
Oh, okay.
She understood the tone of your question, the lead of your question.
The
Son of Man means son of man, and woman means woman as well, and it's plural. It's everyone who believes that they are part of I am, or they are I am.
okay, yes, it's referring to the Son of Man spiritual body part that is a component of all of us, that we are. So what he's referring to here is actually it's related to the very purpose for which we have been brought into physical incarnation in the first place. So those who would call themselves Son of Man, or those who are in the process of becoming and realizing their true self, have no place to rest their head within this physical experience. Because the physical experience is not our home. So foxes and other animals that could apply to this situation, using the example anyway, are more at home in the physical experience than human beings are, because of what human beings are. Or rather, not what human beings are, but what human beings possess. That leads them to the understanding of what they are. And that is our awareness, our intelligence, and our consciousness. Because of the very nature of the consciousness and awareness we possess, we will never be satisfied with remaining at rest, in the sense that we can do the same cycles again and again. So our very awareness and consciousness forces us to find a way out of the situation that we find ourselves in, which is the physical experience. Because what consciousness is calling us back to the place that we could truly call our home. But it's not here. So,
I have a question. Then because of who we are, what we usually think of in the physical as holes and nests or whatever, really cannot contain us. Because it's more confining, and who we really are can't be held in, as you say, the physical experience. So really there is no house here, whatever that means. There is no,
Right.
there is no home here.
right. And we won't really find a place of repose, or we won't find a home here because that's not what we are. So we may be relatively physically comfortable, but that only lasts so long until you get bored.
Well, don't these animals represent like our animal nature, like the part of us that kind of exists in the physical?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So that part
And
is
because,
comfortable.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm saying, well, that part of us might be comfortable, but that's it.
Well, that part of us might feel comfortable, but that's not what we really are.
Right.
And so that part of us can only feel so comfortable because who we really are will always be poking at it and nagging it.
James Richard has his hand up.
Okay, he's out of my frame, I can't see.
Oh, okay. Actually, the animal, the nature we're not comfortable with. There is no comfort in it. And that's the reason we seek to dominate and manipulate. That's why with that nature you seek material stuff for satisfaction, because you're not comfortable with that. And when you find out that, get to the point where you realize that that's not what the comfort is, that's what peace is, that's not what happiness is, there's always something else that you want, then you begin to see what's real. The true nature, being the nature of enlightenment of light.
I was thinking of it from the perspective of like the animal nature is satisfied without progress. Like it doesn't require change, it doesn't require growth. Like it is perfectly comfortable here in the earth realm, you know, kind of existing without.
And that nature, you're right. But the reason it's not comfortable is because the true nature picks at it. You see, so it keeps prodding it. It's like the eagle overturning the nest for the thorns, the force the eagle is out. That's how the true nature of our being, the tree of life picks at the nature of good and evil, because our purpose is to transform that into light. So it picks at it, so you don't be comfortable. That's why people who got a lot of money got issues. Also, when you look at that, that's the 1 in 10 elders say, "Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's ass, nor his wife's servant, manservant," all that kind of stuff. What all it's saying is, don't want what they have because you don't know what came with it. You don't know the issues that they have that came along with it. So you can't have the stuff without the issues that came with it. And you may be the one who can't handle it. So.
So, the part of us that is man and the part of us that is animal exists within the same body. But the man part of us has dominion over the animal part of us. Meaning, not that it can subjugate it and abuse it and exploit it, but so that it, using its intelligence and the awareness that it possesses, can bring balance to everything that is beneath it, quote unquote. Even if what is beneath it isn't aware of the need for that to happen, even though it is affected by it.
It can
And it
tame
can
it.
tell when things are out of balance.
So it tames it.
Yep.
The same way we tame animals. You know, that's a manifestation of taming your nature, of bringing balance to it.
As well as domesticating animals.
Yes.
And yeah, that's what you get. And even in in Kabbalah, they talk about the need to do the same thing for animals that we do to ourselves. And when we bring ourselves into balance, we can bring other beings who have not yet reached a certain critical mass of their humanity into that fold and into that sort of momentum that carries us into a greater awareness and understanding of whom we are. So the man part of us, and man meaning both male and female, is what we are seeking to understand and bring into full realization in our experience. And that part of us is what leads us back to the home that we come from. Because the we that we refer to ourselves as is the awareness and consciousness of man. It's just not yet complete or not yet fully realized or experienced. It's a piece of it, but
For security
piece.
purposes, this call has been terminated. Please contact your moderator and verify the time and date of your conference call.
We have a portion of the total awareness and experience of what man is. So we are the sun.
Press the button.
The red button?
That's it. That's it.
Thank you.
Incoming call.
So when it's said that that the Son of Man is something that we possess or something that we are, it's referring to that piece of infinity that we are, but that piece that is not yet in its full maturity. And a piece of infinity is still infinitely large. But don't try to think about that in terms of intellect.
As you talked about this, the Son of Man not having anywhere to lay his head, and I thought about that physical experience that you talked about. I thought about in Matthew, where it talks about taking no thought for what you eat or drink, because where you lay your head is one of those basic needs in the physical also. But he goes beyond that and says, take no thought for you eat or drink, which is another reminder that this is not all we are. And this is not who we really are.
Right. So an animal would take thought for finding food and drink, and that's literally all the animals do. So if that's what an animal does, what does a man do? Or what does a human do?
Actually, he does the same thing until he becomes aware of who he is. Everything he does leads him to shelter, food, and drink. Whether it's a so-called career that you get lost in, doesn't matter. All of it equals that. Shelter, food, and drink.
Yep. And it's even, the realization hits me again and again that we worry about a lot of stuff, but we don't know what this stuff even is. So I was reading somebody was criticizing Joel Osteen's basically the idea that you will be blessed with physical things if you do right or whatever. And that's primarily what religious people are worried about. And the parts of us that are still religious in some way are still worried about this. Oh,
I was gonna say, I'll go ahead and finish. I'll let you finish.
But I was going to say, but things don't, see, we so are caught up in what we think we want and what we think this reality is, that those become our goals and we begin to worship them. But that's totally backwards to how reality actually works, which is the human or the woman's responsibility to understand. Because that's the very purpose of our humanity. So all of evolution seeks to create the consciousness or produce the environment within which the consciousness and awareness that we possess can exist. And then once that happens, the consciousness and awareness that we possess seeks to bring this whole environment back out, in a sense, and reverse the process. So when I said that it's backwards, we want things, but we don't understand that we produce things. And if we produce literally anything, like what is there to want? So, but the other side of that is, our wants are infinite. But the reason that is because the thing that we want the most, even if we don't realize it, is infinite. But an awareness of that doesn't come unless you begin to grow in awareness of who and what you are, and what your awareness is.
Nick, I was gonna say, I know why worrying is a sin. It's because you can get entangled with worry. It can it can overwhelm you if you let it. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it distorts your ability to produce anything. So, the only thing to fear is fear itself. That's the truth. And you have to go into those situations where you are afraid, where you do worry, and learn how to let that go. Because worry is an animalistic, I would say fear is an animalistic response to a situation, or an animalistic reaction to a situation. And I just did a thing on racism and stuck it on Facebook. And in it I said, fear is not a human response to anything. Even though we all feel it, that's why we're still in our spiritual growth stage, jizz. So, fear is the animal in us that's not yet tamed. Fear is the animal in us reacting, and not the human that we are responding. So, not that I'm saying that there's a division between the animal and the human. That's all part of the same thing. But something is in the driver's seat. And that's what our humanity is. So, whenever you're in situations that produce fear, and you recognize what is welling up in you, that is essentially, it's instinct, it's all these subconscious hints to like things in your past that maybe were uncomfortable and frightening or something that's being brought up again. It's all kinds of things that it's connecting you to. But whenever you're in a situation like that, and you can learn to relax and set the direction of your intent and then just be, those situations will resolve themselves, almost, or that's what it will seem like.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
I might be taking us out in the left field, but anyway. You said fear is basically an animal instinct. Is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh. And it is a reaction, it's an animalistic reaction, not a human response. The human response is different. So,
well, my other part of my question is, so fear is an animal instinct. So we have that from primeval days or whatever. So I guess I'm asking, is that evolution?
oh yeah. And I don't want to be unclear about it, evolution is not something that's at all incompatible with anything that we've ever talked about.
Not at all.
And
You know,
they were, and by they, I mean the ancients who started on this, they were well aware of it. But see, they didn't think about it in terms of how we think about it, because we think about it in terms of linear time. We see all this time taking place in terms of the process of physical evolution. But it doesn't mean anything if you are outside of time.
take a number.
Pastor Richard.
I was raising my hand for him.
Okay.
Since he can't.
Oh,
Shanice is my surrogate hand raiser.
okay.
The scripture says that for God has not given us the spirit of fear. It clearly states that that it did not come from fear does not come from who we really are. But I do believe that though fear comes from the dark side of who we are, the animalistic side of who we are, that it either brings about defeat by virtue of us submitting to it, or it ends up creating what we call heroes, or causing us to rise above it. So fear does have a role to play, and it plays the same role as does anything else that comes from our animal nature, whose purpose is actually to push us in the direction of light, as opposed to submitting to the darkness of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been taken by, a long time ago, I read a book that made me think about, it was a book about fear. And if you tie it into what we're saying, again, I go back to, I think we need to be careful we don't put any kind of negative quality or aspect on fear. It's a reaction. And if you think you're in an incomplete state of self-knowledge of who or what you are, then it has a constructive or positive function. Imagine if you weren't. If you think of fear more as an alert, if you weren't aware and you weren't alerted, bang, you're a squirrel in the middle of the road, right? But the other aspect I think we need to sometimes include, and we skip over when we think about fear, we think we understand the concept. When you take fear, a reaction, and you put it in you project it towards something, now you create what I think we could call anxiety. When you associate and attach anxiety to fear, now you've gone beyond the alert to anticipating a certain outcome, and that's what causes the chaos. Understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are frozen by fear. They're not really only animals are frozen by fear as a natural instinct and a protection against a predator who is prompted or stimulated by movement. I mean, that's like a gazelle's defense in the grass. Don't move. A lion suddenly can't tell you from a blade of grass. But if the gazelle starts worrying about the lion's going to eat me, he's going to take off and the lion's going to catch him. And that's what happens sooner or later if you just sit there long enough and watch what happens to a gazelle. They can't wait forever. And the lion is just like, I can. And I'll find you because I know you're in there because I saw you move, even if I lost you. So in other words, again, it's one of those indicators that helps us to know that we're in a situation that we don't fully understand, but if we can resist drawing a conclusion from it, if we can avoid the anxiety of predicting a future that is not necessarily the future, then it's a good thing and it's okay. And it's there to help us because we're not perfect yet, if you want to call it that. Okay? So I try to talk to people and tell them, don't be afraid to be afraid. Figure out what it is that's making you afraid and deal with it. That's the key. Okay? Anyway, that's the way I think about it.
No, that's exactly the purpose for it.
I think the bottom line is that fear is neutral. Just like everything else, it depends on what you do with it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
but it's constructive in the sense that it's an alert.
Yes,
But it doesn't have any, it's like most energy is either good or bad. It depends on what you do with it, right? It's just, but it's powerful.
right, it is constructive, the alert is constructive. But if you deal with it wrong, it can be destructive. Look at the gazelle who moved, as opposed to staying still.
Well,
So
this is
you
it.
have to make a decision.
Just the other day, all right, just to drag this out, but I sat in on a class they're teaching at USC to teach young women how to deal with potential date rape situations and things like that. This is the guy who's teaching it. And one of the things that'll come up in the course is if you're afraid of a situation, you're in a parking lot, a guy's followed you out there, or whatever it is, if you go into that, don't hurt me stuff, you've basically given in to the anxiety of where you think all that alert is going to take you. You know what I'm trying to say? You've already predicted the outcome of the situation. And the hard thing in a situation like that, which is not as calm as your own personal life, just going in a room and meditating, is things have to happen fairly quickly. So the one or two immediate things that you do could change the whole outcome. Turning around, facing your person, putting your hand up, things like that. And if it keeps moving, taking one or two acts, which most people, I watch these girls, and some of them are tough, and some of them, they're like, even though they're just playing with each other because it's a fake situation, they can't do it quite yet. See what I'm trying to say? But it's all based on, I'm not that kind of person. If I, how do I know if I do this it won't lead to something worse? And so you don't have enough time to think through all the options. So you come out and you do with something that's sort of innate in you, which is an indication of your sense of self-wholeness, I guess you'd say. Right? Anyway, sorry, that's just where you can see a practical reality of it. And a lot of that comes from you were emotionally or whatever beat up as a kid and you got all that baggage. You got to get out of the way, but you can't do that in 30 seconds. So, and that person or that force knows the weakness is there. That's why he identified you and not the person next to you. Okay? So it's all ties into this to me. But anyway, sorry.
So, when you feel the fear, that's the alert. And if you wish to respond in a human way, then you will address the source of your fear instead of succumbing to whatever the fear would have you do.
Oh, excuse me.
And that,
Let me just drag this out one other way. Sorry, then I'll just be quiet. Pain.
No.
No.
Pain.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Then just take me to another room. Pain is the same thing.
Yes.
Very much the same thing. And research has shown, Barbara can tell me if I'm wrong, but maybe I got to watch out. I didn't read this on Yahoo. If someone is, and I hate to use this analogy, but I guess because it's stark enough, if you're attacked in some way from behind, your body is structured so that you'll feel pain instantly. If someone, puts a pencil in your back, but if someone attacks you from the front and puts a pencil in your chest, there's no pain. Why? Because you're aware and conscious of what's happening to you. It's an alert because you didn't know it from what was behind you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's the same, it's all kind of related. And then it's what you do with it. Anyway.
It's almost the difference between you seeing something,
Right.
quote, coming rather than not seeing it, quote.
That's the whole point. Your body is designed to help you be alerted to what you can't see, so to speak, to use that analogy. And I think fear is a bit the same thing on a more spiritual level. And then the question is what you do with it. You're either overcome by it because you anticipate outcomes and so you freeze or do things, or you deal with it. And in the difference between those two things, you kind of find out who you are, where you are in terms of your, we say comfort, we say, your sense of wholeness and all that.
you find out how much you really know,
There
or
you
how
go.
much you believe you
Well, because you can't,
actually believe what you say you believe.
yes, it's too quick for you to think about it. You're just going to react the way you really are.
So that's why during all the priestly initiations, they would make sure that fear was the last thing that would pop up in any of your responses to anything. They would make sure you were fearless, because that's essentially the only thing holding us back.
Marine had a question.
Oh,
In reference to fear, I should be alert. Isn't it some? Excuse me. Isn't it just if something scares you, that there's an immediate response that you get, and then you got to figure out within that time frame how to process what you do with this fear. Is what you're saying?
in the beginning, you might need to think about it like that, and thinking about it takes time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But over time, as you learn
Learning.
you essentially train yourself, eventually you don't have to think about it. And you will respond correctly without having to think. Yeah.
Okay, two things. One thing is that we talk about fear in terms of things that approach us. But there are people who also have financial fear, fear of financial failure, fear of failure as a parent. So all of these types of fears are the same, but they come in different ways. I think they come in different ways because of who we are, as a spark, individual spark. Because what frightens Rika might not frighten me. So it comes for a reason in different ways. The other thing is, to Reen's question, I read someplace where when you're faced with fear, or when someone is in an accident, everything in the brain shuts down, except for what needs to be done for that particular situation. And depending on how deadly it appears to be to the brain also shuts down that portion that you see things in color with. And that's why you can see things in black and white. Everything in your brain shuts down except what's in front of you, and in a split second, that's how actually less than a second, that's how those decisions are made. When you say, well, I didn't have time to think about it, it's because your brain did that.
I was just thinking, remember that movie, the newer series of Batman movies? And the one where he had to climb the mountain in Nepal, or whatever it was, and the last test was releasing the bats from the chest. Why? Because he'd gone through a whole series of preparations to make him less fearful, or better able to react to fear, except for the one that was his most fundamental fear. But as an initiate, they understood him well enough to have that one be the last one, when he had the best, what do I want to say, defense, so to speak. He was best able to manage it. You know what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. If they put him in a room full of bats in the beginning, he would have gone batty.
Mm-hmm.
But they put it off until the end, until he mastered all kinds of other things. And then they said, all right, if you can do this one, you come full circle, now we know you've overcome that most profound sense of loss, weakness, whatever inside you, and you're the warrior, so to speak. This is what's the truth in the martial art use of these terms. Warrior doesn't really mean shoot 'em up. It just means somebody able to deal with situations in a very
Warrior means one with no fear, who responds to any given situation.
Voilà.
But yeah, even in the Batman movies, all the movies that deal with superhero stuff, the word hero comes from Heru, which is Egyptian. Oh, we will get into that, I believe. But
Yeah.
all of that is a retelling of the same story that's been told for 1,000,000 times. But what I meant to point out with that is that's the mystery initiation drama replayed in the modern times. That's what they used to do when you go when you are essentially invited to become a member of the priestly sect or whatever. Now, it wasn't always done in the same way over time, but that's the archetype, and that's the method. They find out what you're afraid of, they put you in a room with it, you don't come out until you are ready.
Turn.
Or you drag your-
But that's how you do it.
Yeah,
That's just what I mentioned in the beginning. You go, whenever you realize you are in a situation that makes you uncomfortable, don't run from it.
deal with it.
Yes.
But they're.
And
but
the one thing I wrote in the thing that I wrote about racism is that, wow. So fear is not a human response, as I've been saying. And if you find that you are uncomfortable in a given situation, the animalistic response is to eliminate the source of the fear that appears to be on the outside of you. So go kill the thing that you're afraid of. That is ignorance, and that's not the truth concerning what's actually going on. Which is why in a lot of native populations, they didn't behave in the way towards nature that the more intellectual cultures did. Because the intellectual culture would go destroy the thing that they were afraid of. The native population would say, the thing that I'm afraid of is not causing the fear. The fear is a part of me. I will deal with the fear in me. And then we can live in harmony. And if one of us has to kill each other at some point, that's literally the way nature is supposed to work. But I'm not about to go upset the balance of the whole planet so I can pretend that I'm comfortable, which I'm not anyway.
Nick,
Um,
why do we draw what we are afraid of? What is it in us that draw that thing or that person to us?
so, the law of attraction, we've all heard of that before?
Yeah.
That works. And however it's trivialized in popular culture, like in The Secret, I haven't actually read that, but that works. And if you put enough of your emotional and intention and energy behind it, that thing will come right to you.
But remember,
So,
if the universe is trying to help you, it's trying to give you opportunities to be whole, to be complete, then it would bring what you're afraid of in front of you, right? Isn't that just another way we were saying before, challenges in your life, right? And then we
Yes.
sort of folklore it and superficialize it and jokingly say, it's not a, whatever the word is, it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Ha ha ha, right? We belittle it because it's a little more profound than that, but still we say those kind of things.
Yeah.
Think of it as an opportunity, not a whatever. Easy to say.
Yeah.
and
There's
the
truth in
universe
that.
or actually your higher self will do that. But what Deb and Evelyn, what you were talking about is a similar thing, but it's a little different. You can draw things to you, but even when you are you think you're perfectly calm, everything is fine, and then all of a sudden your house explodes or something. So you haven't necessarily drawn that to you, but you have demonstrated that you are at a place in your own development where you can handle that. And so your higher self will give it to you
Great.
Or,
and make you go through it.
or,
Yeah.
or you can't handle it,
Yeah.
and then it happens, and you have to learn too.
Right.
It's like,
Yep.
this is not necessarily an individual thing, yet it is, because you may not be able to handle it alone, but someone can help you get through it, which means that they're helping themselves also. Because, though we're one, we're many, so it is not always something that you're going to be able to overcome alone.
Yeah, I was going to say a little earlier that this doesn't suggest that you got to do it all by yourself.
Right.
You need to know maybe when you would need some help. And look at abusive behavior in women. I mean, the classic example. And they go into women's lives and find out they were asking for it. It's a history. They always seem to find that kind of guy. I mean, use all those things you just get off the news, right? So where does that woman go to learn to be stronger? She goes to a halfway house. She goes to some place where there's an environment that'll nurture, reinforce, but help her face some of those things she's not seeing. Because she just may get the next guy who's just it's finished. And it's too late to learn when your last gasp going, now I get it. You know? The problem with never mind, we won't get into racist things. it's institutionalized, you got no place to go to get support. All those
So-
protection agencies that should protect you are actually working against you.
I read Nick's thing online on racism, but actually, I think the reason you can't go into place is because racism is a symptom of something deeper. And that deeper thing that racism is a symptom of is fear.
But my point is, if you look, or I don't know, I didn't grow up there, but you're in Mississippi, and there's plenty of history to show you recognize and act, and there are even people in that community who know this is wrong, but they know the police won't act, they know the politicians won't, because they're all part of that structure that protects fear, or uses the fear, not, so, you know what I'm trying to say, on an individual basis.
Why are you going to
And-
Mississippi?
But that's why,
Well,
South Carolina.
Yeah.
That's why it,
Well, I don't have the experience of it
see,
either.
racism is so pervasive until you can't deal with it like you would your house blowing up, or like you would in an individual relationship. That is the reason, and I agree totally with Nick when he talks about King started in the natural and ended up in the spiritual by virtue of the movement. It is up to this generation to pick it up and move it forward. It will not be moved forward by an individual. It has to be done collectively. And out of all the things that we face individually, the one thing that cannot be dealt with on an individual basis is racism. Because it's the most pervasive fear that the human has ever experienced. And it runs real deep.
But
And let me just add on to that. And it runs real deep because it forces you to come to the real, or face the reality of who and what you are,
Right.
which is the thing we are most afraid of.
Say that again, Nick.
Because it forces you to understand and come face to face with the reality of who and what we are, what you are, which is the thing we are most afraid of. Because it's the thing we least understand.
That makes sense.
And it works on both sides. When Richard was talking about, you know, the policemen are not going to do anything, that's racism. But it also works on the other side because you accept it. If you don't deal with it. And if you're not careful, you will end up perpetuating the same thing.
But this,
So,
we say, I agree with you completely, it takes a collective, but a collective is a group of individuals, so to speak.
yes.
But Mandela's not gonna show up all the time in every place when you need him. So it just takes that one, sometimes it's an accident. For all I know, Rosa Parks was just, that was a bad hair day for
She
her.
was just tired.
And she just said, I hate getting up. Yesterday or the day after, she would have said, oh, okay. Right? But that was just the moment. And then it was too late. She started something.
But let's take it a step further. She was supposed to start because she was not the first one to be arrested.
Right.
The day before,
Yeah.
there were 2 women arrested for sitting in the wrong place on the bus.
Teenagers.
It just so happened it was her.
Girls, not women. Yeah.
You know, so it was, well, actually, there were some female maids who had been arrested before Rosa Parks. It was just the energy at that particular time,
Yeah.
it was there for that purpose. And it just so happens, the one who lead the movement just is there, because he definitely was not supposed to be in Alabama, he's supposed to be in Georgia. But ended up there, quote unquote, by chance. So all of these things are there for a reason. And again, nothing is coincidental. Nothing is coincidental. Even the ones who were not arrested, were arrested, but this other movement is a build up to that. So everything we do has a purpose, whether we acknowledge it or aware of it or not. There is a reason for it. And the reason for it is to bring us to a place of wholeness, balance.
And I would bet you could look at history, and even in the case of King, for example, it was in no way, the job was not complete. And so it's almost like the hero gets killed, almost always. And then everything sort of takes a step back, but then something triggers people saying, no, it's enough, but now there's a new energy, a deeper, more profound energy, and it does lead to change. But the Moses doesn't get you there. You know what I'm saying?
No, he doesn't.
And that's the sacrificial. And what did we read about King? He had premonitions, but he also felt he was part of a momentum that, you know, the die was cast. He was part of it. So anyway, so it ain't over till it's over, I guess, or it's not done until it's done. But I guess I still question, just as a question, why would be, I'd have to think of it maybe in just intellectualizing it. Why racism as opposed to economic well-being or something? Because at the end of the day, it's who gets it and who does, who gets to share in it and who doesn't, right?
Can I answer that?
Why
Oh,
is,
yeah.
why is the racism the strong one? That's always the button you can push, you know? Why is it that one?
Because racism is the most divisive,
It's embedded.
and racism also is the one thing, once it's conquered, the oneness is experienced. The unicity of the human becomes an experience as opposed to a concept. And what the economics, they don't do that. But racism deals with the dehumanization of the individual, plus it denies the divinity of the individual. Because the first thing that was taught during slavery was, you don't have a soul. So when we deal with racism from the perspective of bringing balance, at that jump, at the point that is dealt with, we see everybody as one. But economics doesn't do that.
Well, forgive me, but I think that's a little bit after the fact of what I was asking. I think it's more, because you can change the shape of your body, and you can change so much, but you can't avoid the fact that, no, you're from Africa, you're not from North America. You're Native American, you're Chinese, you're black, you're white. You can put clothes on to try to mollify it. You can wear the same clothes as everybody else in the community. That makes it seem more benign. But when push comes to shove, everybody's walking around with no clothes on, that's the one thing that you can differentiate people from that you can't avoid. I think maybe that's what it is. You can't tell a person's economic well-being. And you can be heavy, you can be skinny, you can be old, you can be young. But there are a lot of ways you can work around that, but you can't get away from color of the skin.
Well, and that the whole idea of the color of the skin, from the African to the European and everything in between, is conceptual. And I won't get into it because that's the class in itself. We talked about how conceptual it is, and because none of this stuff is real. If all of this is an illusion, then skin color is as well. But it's dealt with in order to keep the human as opposed to becoming aware of who it really is. And I think that what's happening now is there is such increase in what we call interracial relationships until everything is being balanced out. There will come a time when it won't matter. Because I remember saying to him once, when I first moved from DC, and I was going to the grocery store, and I saw this lady who I knew where she lived, so I knew where she was coming from. White lady had a black child, well, a child who had been born from interracial relationship. And the first thing that came to my mind is that the day will come when it will be very difficult for her to call her grandchild and it's getting to that place now. So this is not, none of this stuff is physical in terms of being real, but it's conceptual. So when I see a Chinese, I'm looking at a concept I might not understand and be able to articulate, but it's a concept along this journey to the enlightenment. Out of the darkness came everything that is. Out of Africa came every race that is. Out of the darkness came everything that is. And it must be straightened out. The darkness must be brought, the balance must be brought to the darkness so that the concept can become what it was intended to be, which is the tree of life as opposed to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it's a concept.
I was gonna say, we're not even good animals, so animals do it better than we do. Anyway, so we're misplaced to think we're animalistic. That's right. Who was it, Zoroaster, who realized that? Some Persian who said, no, we're not animals.
We worship animals. Animals kill to eat. We kill to kill.
That's because we don't get what being an animal really is. We're fake animals. Anyway.
So Nick, where were you going with everything today?
Where was I? I just set the ball rolling, and then sort of keep it in line.
Okay.
So, where I actually was going was that other verse that I mentioned.
85.
But so coming off of what we just talked about, second thing that I want to talk about was 85, which is Adam came into being from a great power and a great wealth, but he did not become worthy of you. For had he been worthy, he would not have experienced death. And this relates to what we just talked about, because Adam was not yet in recognition of his role as what is called the Son of Man. And again, Adam doesn't refer to an individual. Well, depending on the context, but overall, Adam is a particular generation of humanity in terms of the spiritual state, our spiritual state as a collective. So Adam, although, as it says, came from a great wealth and power in terms of spirituality, in terms of the nature of the awareness and consciousness that Adam was, or is, even it was not yet consciously dealing with the process of raising our awareness and consciousness out of the physical dimension. So it was still part of the downslope, you could say. It was the top of the downslope. But the Son of Man does not realize its place until that downslope begins to curve the other way and go back up through our conscious understanding of our purpose or what we need to do while we're here.
Question. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you just said that about the sloping and all of that stuff, Adam came from a place of, and I think about a bell curve, you know, highs and lows. So Adam came from the top of, in terms of potential, came from the top of the bell curve in terms of spiritual wealth and awareness. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes,
Okay.
because
So the
Adam
bell curve
was-
started at the top.
yes, in terms of the state of our collective spiritual state. The closer you get to creation, the closer you get to the creator. So one step away from the creator is pretty is pretty well developed. But in which direction is it developing? Downslope.
So, man,
So tasted death. Literally, what does tasted death mean? I'm picturing the quote unquote the physical taste of death, meaning eating
I like
whatever the
the word.
fruit was, but the spiritual taste of death had to do with separation related to disobedience.
Yeah, I like that word taste though. That's fine.
Yeah, so do I. To me, it's like you eat,
So-
eat something really sour. It doesn't.
But taste doesn't have to be
well,
sour.
then why wouldn't the scripture say he was killed?
Well, it
because-
still
because
doesn't
it
have to
wasn't
be
killed.
sour.
He wasn't killed.
I
Well-
could eat something really nice and still die.
I,
No,
Let
it's
me-
not going to die
Who's
No,
you want to go?
in the
Okay.
sense you're talking about.
when we look at the whole concept of death,
yeah.
it comes from the spiritual. Because when we look at death from the spiritual, it's talking about the illusion being separated from the Creator, right?
Right.
When we look at death in the physical, it's separation from us. You see, so that's how we perceive it, as a separation from each other. But when we begin to have that paradigm shift, when we understand that death as we see it does not really exist, it's something that is imaginary, and see all of it as opportunity for life itself.
So go back to my question, taste of death, and put it together then.
So what Jesus said, there will be those who will not taste death. What he's talking about, I think he's talking about in the experience. In the experience alludes to when the idea of the word, when you eat the word, it tastes like honey. You remember that in the Old Testament? So it's making reference to those things that are nutrition, of nutritional value, and the nutritional value of it when it comes to the word, whether the word or the spiritual essence of the word is nutritional value for the spiritual. Just like there's nutritional value that we taste for the body, whether it be sour or sweet, it doesn't matter.
So had he been worthy, he would not have experienced the illusion of separation, because there is really no,
Right,
so he would not have experienced the illusion of separation
Right.
from Creator.
right,
And worthiness just means whether or not you're complete.
Right.
yeah.
And I just want to mention that the taste death thing, that's a good word to use.
Yeah.
Because my example was going to be in a lot of fairy tales. You go to the giant's house or you go to wherever you are and there's this feast sitting out on the table. But you have been warned, don't eat it. Right? As soon as you eat it, then it hits the fan. Because when you eat something, you are incorporating into yourself, your spiritual and energetic body, a quality of a vibration that you may or may not be able to even handle. So when you taste death, you are incorporating into yourself something that produces the death state. Or, yeah. So when you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you are incorporating into your spiritual, energetic, and mental body something that produces further division in your experience, and something that moves you away from the Creator in terms of what you're aware of. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons the human, quote unquote, blesses his food or prays over the food. It's not about what we think it is. It's about bringing the energy of what you're about to put into your body into balance with the light. That's what it's about. Regardless of the energy that's present when you are served it, you alter that energy and bring it into balance. That's the whole purpose of praying over the food.
But maybe I didn't hear you clearly earlier though, Nick, but it seems to me that part of the unworthiness in a sense was the lack of awareness on the part of Adam. Because if Adam was whole, how could he have a concept of self, which is in itself related to a concept of separateness? Me in the mirror. Yeah, and if he didn't have that because he was in wholeness, then he was vulnerable to any situation which would introduce that. So And until he went through the experience of self-separateness, seeing myself in the mirror and realizing it's just the illusion. But if you don't understand that there are illusions, you're not distracted by that. But that leaves you vulnerable if there is some energy force that creates that moment of, you know what I'm trying to say? So that's
Yeah.
why
No, I understand.
Adam was doomed to take us on this road. 'cause-
Well, he was supposed to.
well,
I mean,
supposed to or not, we're at it.
He was supposed to. Adam was not Elohim. Adam was the entity to become Elohim by virtue of being a creator. And the choice was made to create in the other direction. And what was created? Illusion. Because the only thing that's real is what is created by the Creator itself. And in order to be the image of the Creator itself, you have to create. So Adam was neutral. It was just an entity full of thoughts that combined those thoughts to move in the direction that created this illusion.
But there wasn't any other way.
No, it wasn't.
So we're completing Adam's task.
Actually, we're
To
still
find
there.
our way home.
We're still in the garden. We ain't moved from that.
Well, that's my own view is
Yeah, actually.
we never left the garden.
Right.
It's as if you just woke up one day and you saw the garden in a different light. No pun intended.
But that's,
But that's a good point, though.
it really is, because the light that you see it in is the one that you created.
But that's it, and that's the joke. The joke's a bad word, but the irony.
And
Because we could wake up tomorrow and be right back at the beginning in the garden, so to speak, and realize the whole journey was something in our mind, to use that language, I guess. But that's where we are now. We're stuck in the dream, so to speak, I guess.
And that's indicated when it says that he went to sleep. He never woke up. He went into a trance. And the trance that we are in creates this stuff.
But look at that, without even thinking about it, that's what I said, and that's what we say this
Yeah.
reality is. It's the dream.
It's a dream.
Because it's separateness and all that stuff is a part of this fantasy.
Is a tree of knowledge of good and evil fantasy? And the greatest said, all right, fine, I will allow you to.
Okay. this is it.
You want a quick answer?
The tree of knowledge of good and evil is exactly the same as the tree of life. It just doesn't have life. It is the substance that was given to the atom to create or to bring into existence the same substance that brought the tree of life into existence.
But that's what I asked in the last class. If we took that tree that's shown in the corner, is not the tree of life, or is the tree of life analogous to that? And everybody
Yes.
quickly answered, it's the flip side of all those
And
things.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
So it's the
Without
yang to
life.
the yin.
Without life,
It's the yang to the yin. It's just the opposite of the same thing.
but it doesn't have life. And that's the purpose of the atom,
Because
to
of,
bring life to
that's
it.
why I was asking, because of the dotted circle in the middle.
That's the experience.
Because of the illusion of separation.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, I
creates
don't
that
know.
illusion of duality.
I don't know that it's so much an opposite, because that implies that they're somehow the same. And I think it's more like a poor, dim copy. Right?
Okay.
It's missing something vital.
I won't argue that word, use of that word, but to me, the key was, I'm sitting here thinking, if I take the tree of life, looking at it right there in the corner of the room, if I push the button, so to speak, on the illusion of separation, I get the other side. I get the tree of good and evil. Because it's separation that drains or takes away the life energy that is in the tree of good and evil.
No, there was never any life energy in it.
Okay, it's language.
No, it's not. It's reality. It says the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
But then to answer Nick's question, then the tree of good and evil is illusion.
It's an illusion because it was created to be an illusion, but it was not supposed to be that way. When the atom becomes aware of who it is, then the atom begins to use that substance in the tree of knowledge of good and evil to transform it into life itself, which makes the atom a creator, thus becoming Elohim. That's it.
Okay, that's it, you're right, let's go home. There it is. I'm not kidding.
It's easy to say it, but getting this, that's the trick.
Really? Well, if you can't do it, teach it. Right.
So is the tree of knowledge of good and evil the foundation of the reality that we created in the same way that the tree of life is the kind of foundation or building blocks of like the real
Yes,
reality?
yeah.
So, the tree of knowledge of good and evil is just as an example. Like you can look at any of the metal chairs that you're sitting on. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is we look at that chair and be like, oh, this chair is made of metal. It's, you know, it's got some brown paint on it. It's shiny. It's cold. It's hard. It is what we said it is based on how we've chosen to interact with and understand reality, which is based upon the idea that we are God, and the idea that the Creator is not. So there is a big distinction between the reality of what the word Creator refers to and what we say when we mean, well, what I meant when I say that we think we are God. So if you believe yourself to be God, then that's it. That's it. That's the ceiling. That is as high as one can go. So you can improve what you have, but you can't gain anything else because there's nothing else to gain in terms of your understanding of yourself, your ability to interact with reality, and all that. So that's what you believe after you have bought into the tree of knowledge of good and evil paradigm. Then that is the line along which you choose to create. You create in that direction, which is why we get further and further into materialism, because that's all we have. So we see reality, we see these things, we increase our understanding of what we think those things are, even though regardless of how small, into as many pieces you cut something up, you still can never know what it is. And that is the nagging truth underlying all of what we call modern or intellectual science. They don't deal with reality in terms of what it is, because the very method they employ does not allow them to do that. And then the assumption is made that there are no other methods, because, as we just said, I am the standard. I am God. So what else could there possibly be? But that is the result of ignorance, having bought into the tree of knowledge of good and evil reality. The tree of life reality is what you begin to understand and seek out when you realize that you have deluded yourself. All this stuff you say that you know and understand, what is it based on? You don't know. So how is it that you can overcome your own limitations and get back to where you once were? Well, in the beginning you don't know you used to be there. So the chair is metal, the chair is brown, the chair is hard, the chair is shiny, the chair is cold. It's made up of all these tiny little particles. But I don't know what those particles are at all, through the very method I have chosen to look at reality. Nor could I. So, the reality of what the Creator is, which is what we are seeking to identify ourselves with, because that is the reality of who and what we are, requires that we let go of our intellect and the understanding we put onto reality and become aware or learn to listen to what was there before we bought into this tree of knowledge approach. Because it's still there. But when you buy into the tree of knowledge approach, you create a division. And it's that primary division that's created, and then you have all your existence in one half of it, and you lose sight of the other half. And you have to bridge the gap that exists in your own understanding. And not just understanding, because understanding comes after experience. You have to do it first. So, if you want to advance your understanding, you have to do more.
What do you mean by do?
Thank you. By do, I mean apprehend the self that you are. So I don't mean go out and do, unless the self that you are has told you to go out and do something. But I can explain that later.
So
It only means, it means,
so would it, Nick, would it be the very thing that I sought to apprehend apprehended me?
yes. I know we said that maybe before.
Yeah.
What that means is you relax your tendency to think in a tree of knowledge a good and evil way, so that the tree of life reality can become present in your awareness again. In other words, it can fill the space you create for it. It apprehends you when you give it the chance. And then it informs you about how to go about bringing balance to yourself and this thing that we experience as reality. It is the bridge between that primordial division, and it is the thing that helps you overcome the limitations inherent in the tree of knowledge understanding. So in terms of modern science, we can look at all these particles and waves, but you still don't know what they are. If you want to know what they are, you have to stop using that paradigm and use who and what you are. Because you are made of the same stuff that the chair is made out of. How do you experience yourself? Your consciousness and your awareness. That chair is made out of consciousness and awareness. Everything else is an assumption.
What do we mean by the use of the term apprehend?
Apprehend?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I sought to understand,
Okay.
it's actually taken over me. I've been overcome by it. That's actually what he's saying. Because
So can you flip it, really, then? So the thing that I sought to overcome overcame me? I mean, you're really saying the thing I thought I sought to dominate, to control, I mean, can you throw all that?
well, if you seek it to dominate or to control, and create is what you seek to dominate and control, you don't get apprehended. You just end up where you are. But if you seek to understand who you are in relationship to identifying with the Creator, then you be overcome by that understanding, as opposed to you remaining where you are.
So it's kind of like you're actually stopping and you're opening yourself up to be apprehended. So you're inviting apprehension of yourself by yourself.
You get into a place where you can't go any further. And you realize that the further is you. And you just stop. Your carnal nature cannot carry you any further. Your intellectual desires can't carry you any further. And you realize that in order for you to move beyond where you are in terms of your understanding, you have to accept who you are. or the it that you are, which is not this human.
Because who you are, you've always been.
Right.
Okay. We should all be levitating right now.
Maybe we are.
If we're not aware of it.
I suppose in a sense we are. Ha ha ha. Can't do this
That's-
unless
Well,
we
I'm as everyone, I'm about that literal levitation, so I'll let you know. And well, I know how to do it. Well, I don't know how to do it. I know how to get there.
Yeah.
And I can say that. I know how to get there. I also know what it takes to get there, which is probably why I'm not there yet. Because there's in here, our understanding is very good relative to anywhere. Our understanding of what we deal with is good. Our wisdom does not match our understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certain people may be excluded.
Well, just be sure you don't know how to get there on the job, when you're on the job. 'Cause
But when you get there, jobs will come to you.
Yeah. All of every time.
I don't like bringing up examples because then, not necessarily, but anyway. So before I moved out of the house I was moving into, or before I moved out of the house I moved out of, we had a bunch of issues with the roommate. We didn't know how we were going to make rent. My AmeriCorps thing was about to end. I didn't have a job. In one day, all of it happened. We got a roommate. He paid the rent. I got a job announcement, and I didn't have to worry about nothing.
And
But not that I didn't have to worry about anything.
you got a check from me.
Yeah. No, but I mean like, because I can't do it by myself.
But the universe still drew his check to you.
Yeah, that's true.
The thing that I saw to apprehend me.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a great
Yeah, but I
example,
mean-
Nick.
I got two of them that keep apprehending me.
Grateful.
Well, now I'm in a position to pay it back,
There you go.
which I want to. But so it wasn't the fact that I no longer had anything not to worry about, or no longer had anything to worry about. It was that during the period where I could have worried the most, I chose not to.
Yeah. That's the key.
And that's the only way it works.
That's seemingly the most difficult thing to get people to understand. I mean, I'm constantly dealing with somebody, a couple of people in particular, about not seeing what they were experiencing in this world, but understanding that it's there to strengthen them. It's like, especially for example, in a job situation, if you're not making ends meet, you try to find another job, or there's such tension on the job, you want to leave, all that kind of stuff, stop worrying about it. It is what it is, accept it for what it is, and that's when things change. But as long as you think about making ends meet, you never make them meet, because you keep seeing the gap. And as long as you think about the tension on the job, you're giving life to it, so it never changes. So, but when you get to the place where you say, I'm embracing it, it's okay, that's not my issue, that's their issue. And I need to help them get through it. That's when things begin to change. Not begin to, that's when they change, period.
And that's also when you are starting to allow yourself to apprehend you. The person who you already are, or always have been.
See, I was talking to someone a few days ago, and they said, one of the things they said to me is that, but that's easy for you to say, because things are, always well with you. And I'm telling you, yeah, they are, because I choose to accept it that way. It doesn't mean that I'll have opportunities as you have, Because I'm facing some of the things far worse than what you're facing, but I refuse to accept it as being belonging to me. It's only to strengthen me. And I guess what I'm saying is that simply because you don't see tension or you don't hear someone talking about it, it doesn't mean they don't have the opportunity for it to be there. They just choose not to.
Yep.
I think that's what Jesus meant when he talked about don't walk around in sackcloth with ashes. So people be feeling sorry for you. Just be, hold on to who you are, regardless of what you're dealing with.
So I think the question might be, and we've said it in other ways I think before, to develop that habit, to develop that facility, if you can use that in language. What are some techniques? We've said breathing, meditating, something to change the focus, right? To give you that space so that you can escape, to use an analogy from something else. This is an analogy, again, to go back to the martial arts. If you create some space between yourself and whatever, you have an opportunity to change what's happening. So how do you, if you've attached yourself in such a desperate way to that feeling of angst, or that's all coming from, what's the technique to give you that space so that you can refocus?
Breathing, period.
I suppose that's why some people use drugs and things like that too.
Breathing is
Because it changes your,
breathing.
it's just you lose control of it. It's not-
The idea of breathing brings that, it does not necessarily create that space, but it rebalances the energy. And there are people who have never been in a session. This would greatly affect any place in a session like this. And I trust me, what I ask you to do is simply breathe. And I will say something to them because it needs something tangible. I will say something that's focused on Elohim. I hear that word as you breathe. And not one person have I dealt with in that manner. Not one has failed to come into balance. It changes. It changes everything. And the reason it changes everything is because breath is who we are. And you just need an infusion of life continuously into this shell of this body, of this house that we live in, of this grave, in order to bring that energy back to a place of balance. Breathing does that. It just, that's what we are supposed to do. And it's not so much to breathe, because you breathe all the time. It's focusing on it. Or being aware of it.
But I think also if you see, there's those iconic pictures, let's say, of a Japanese room. Everything is minimal, and you have one red rose in a vase, or something like that, and that fills the whole room. It's the same notion of the one thing, the breathing, the one thing to change your focus that then takes over your perception.
And that's what gives you the space.
There was the understanding that created that way to design a space for you to go to. And most often I think it's something natural. That's why what? Go outside, take a walk around the building. Right? Something like that. Breathe fresh air. Look at some flowers, something else, Don't turn on the TV, don't SMS, don't text somebody, it's not that kind of thing. Anyway.
As everybody's been talking, I've been thinking about, what is the pause button in our, quote, Elysium of this life? What is the pause button? It's like a tape that's running or a film that's running. But what is the pause button that causes us to you know, as you were talking about, the breathing creates the space, and sometimes on the rat wheel of this illusion of life, what is it that you know, instead of pushing the button and getting a pellet of food, physical food, what is the pause button that causes us to push the button and get that
Spiritual food?
that essence of spiritual food. And I think all of our experiences that we have, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of opportunities to introspect and breathe and obtain that. And it's all of the distractions that keep us from doing it. The thing that we purpose to do, something happens, and we, quote unquote, allow it to sidetrack us, or to take our mind off focus. And that's what the tree of knowledge of good and evil does, if we allow it to. It allows us to have these missed opportunities to really see who we are. So, and my pause button may be different from yours. As Richard was talking, he was saying, you know, the one red rose. You know, consider a black and white film, and you got this one red rose. That's the color, or the majesty of a bird in a nest just captures you. You've seen it thousands of times. So, you know, we all need to look at what those opportunities are. And they're different for all of us. They can be different.
Is that the same thing as the burning bush experience?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And also, to add to that, Barbara, it's when we push the pause button, that at that moment we stop seeking solutions in this realm. We stop searching for solutions in the place of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We stop searching for solutions in our intellect, in our abilities as humans. And at that moment, when the pause button is pushed and we breathe, it's almost like we are holding on to a sliver of light, a branch of light that moves us beyond where we are, or where we were at the moment before we begin to breathe.
The pause button is the experience of eternity. That's what it really is.
But I think you said it. It's a purposefully the most personal experience. Mine isn't yours, etc., etc. And that's why. But we have to learn that, right? So you go out and take your yoga, and you sit there for 3 months trying to get your left leg on top of your right leg, and it just, you know, you can't do it. So you figure it's all lost. All those are just techniques that are supposed to lead you to the need not to have technique, really. The most profound thing I ever understood about yoga was all movement is yoga. And if you think about all movement going backwards, breath is the essence of yoga. And yet you can see a picture of a guy standing on one leg with his foot behind his head doing, you know, all this kind of stuff. That's just some other expression of it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have time for that, and your body's not built for you to do that, you're not losing out. Because breath, it's all from breath. It really is. And this is in the Hindu and yoga tradition.
It is,
to say that.
and apart from all of the movements and all the other stuff,
everybody has to
that's,
find their own-
everybody can do that. Everybody can breathe.
Yeah.
With a little practice.
Yeah.
Most of us don't breathe.
Right.
And you should know
But
that
everybody can breathe.
you're built to be able to breathe, yes.
Yes.
Except unless you're born with some... and even
Everybody can breathe.
then- Right. Yeah.
If you're born without breathing, you're not
Well, that's it. You're not born.
alive.
No, you're right. Everybody can breathe.
So,
So we just...
do we know where we are?
Yep, we're just
We're
breathing.
breathing.
We're just breathing.
So homework assignment, focus on that.
Yeah,
Whenever you feel that anxiety, that fear, or whatever,
breathe.
you will acknowledge it, but choose something else. Choose to create space that that feeling makes you aware of the fact that you need to create.
And if nothing else, just breathing will do it, because then it gives you time to remember the source of your breath. And if you really remember the source of your breath, you understand that whatever happens, there is no lack. You have no lack. The source of your breath has no lack, and you are part of the source of your breath, so you have no lack. So whatever that thing that is that's looming up doesn't have the power, or doesn't have the life that the illusion wants you to think it has. And you might end up being homeless. I'm not saying that. But the essence is not the physical experience. The true essence is not that.
I was looking at something as we were talking and dealing with the whole concept of breathing. When you look at the words that were translated as revenge or punishment in especially in the New Testament, the root for those words is breathing. And what it actually talks about, it doesn't talk about revenge or punishment. The word actually talks about being ready to protect those who are in disobedience, those who are not breathing, those who don't understand, once you understand. And the root of that is breathing. So in essence, what it's talking about is breathing on behalf of others. That's what we talk about when we talk about praying for someone. Mm-hmm. We're talking about when you tell somebody you go pray for them, you tell them you go bring things into balance on their behalf. You're breathing on their behalf. So the things that you begin to face then, if I'm going to breathe on your behalf, and the thing that you're dealing with does not challenge me, then the thing that I'm going to have to deal with is not the thing that doesn't challenge me. Something else is going to come to me that I'm going to have to deal with, and it doesn't look like anything you were dealing with, so we missed the point. We don't realize that we are actually breathing on behalf of someone else because it doesn't look like what theirs look like. So it's everything goes back or has as its root breathing, breath, because everything that is breath, spirit.
Yes, sir.
So what's the homework?
Breathe.
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 I refuse the homework.
Well, I can't control you.
So if you don't do that homework, you pass out, right?
Then you'll have some other homework I did not intend to do. But it will happen.
But it occurs to me, I think, if you expand a little on that, I mean, I know that Audrey is feeling good about herself and feeling at peace if I hear her singing in the house. Right? Now, she might have picked that up from her mother, but point is, it just occurred to me. When you find yourself singing, and it's usually not some, whatever thing, there's the space, and that's a form of breathing, and yet you're probably doing it because you're expressing and you're reveling a bit in a moment of peace, right? It's just something that comes naturally out of you. So, I don't know, it occurred to me.
That's when they would talk about the music of the spheres. Has anyone heard that term before?
Yeah.
The music of the what?
Spheres.
Spheres, whatever.
Spheres. S-P-H-E-R-E.
Spheres, like circles. Spheres.
Yes, okay. Spheres.
Look that up. but that's what you are resonating with. Or that's why when you do hard work, you sing, or you're in a group, you sing. Like it's all about vibration.
Yeah.
And just for my dad specifically, I'll just add on to our discussion of breathing. You remember that book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum?
Yeah.
And the pendulum goes back and forth, but at each side, motion stops, so it disappears, and then it goes back.
Right, yeah.
That's what breathing is. It goes up, it reaches its apex, it disappears, then it comes back down. It disappears, it goes back up. So where's it going? Where are you going?
Right.
The spark of the breath is actually initiated by who and what you actually are. And it is continually refreshed. Because if it withdrew its will to keep this physical vehicle alive, you would just drop.
That's what we
So
do,
with
yeah.
every breath you take, it is actually the result of the influx of your higher self and the spirit that you are, willing the continuation of this physical experience because it knows you still have things to learn.
Hard lessons.
All right, that's it. It's over. Don't say another word.
So,
Just visualize.
having said all that, homework, just breathe. Be aware of it, and when you get in those positions where you get anxiety or anxious or afraid, the one thing you forget about is breathing. And that's how you can hyperventilate. And you essentially you snowball the situation and make it worse. But if you remember your breathing, that cuts anxiety in half right then. And then it's just then it's just focusing on it. And teaching yourself to relax. So we're good. I should finish. I would not go any further today.
You'll be back next week.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
I might not be though.
Okay.
My schedule it should be every other week. I work on Saturday. So I might be here every other week type thing.
Just submit text.
Okay.
Where's your there? Yes.
I don't know.
Jenny said, click.
I didn't. It just hung up. I don't know
You said
why.
he was through.
I guess so.
Yeah, the end of it.
That's the
The
desire.
end of it.
He spoke it, it happened. Denise, don't be shocked by the reality of it.
Maybe one of his girlfriends forgot to stand behind him.
Are you talking about me?
Nick! Look at what you're looking at. We have what would you call that picture? I don't know. The picture on our screen is a picture of what? A star? Light universe? So now we have the Mysterium Tremendum here. We have the voice speaking from
Beyond.
oh.
So he turns on his spiritual and his physical and will.
He'll be showing up here at the cloud. No more TV.
No more TV.
Out.
My goodness.
Isn't that a not so coincidental coincidence?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really not a coincidence, right?
No.
Well, I'm done.
Okay.
Okay.
Go back into